everybody to the latest edition of We Got Next. I'm Ricky Hampton with my great friend, Coach Paul Mokeski. And Big Mo, we got a legend in the house, one of the great players of the National Basketball Association and college basketball, for that matter. A very good friend of yours and a teammate. I'm going to let you do the honors, my brother, and introduce this gentleman.
Well, now we can add Hall of Famer onto that introduction, which is it's really awesome for me. Both Sidney and Jack Sigma are in the Hall of Fame, and being able to play with those guys and be friends with those guys. Not only are they great basketball players, but just great people. And we're happy to have you on today, Sid, and talk a little basketball and talk about your new endeavor and a new book. And
thank you, Mo.
We'll probably get a lot of questions and stuff, so we can answer those along the way too.
I thought about you 2 weeks ago. I was looking up Arkansas's basketball schedule, and back years ago, I went to the Final Four and then went to the Elite Eight, like back-to-back years. I remember playing you guys at Kansas. And yeah. I remember, and I went back and looked at. We played Kansas one week at your home. You had a winning streak like crazy. Remember that? You had a crazy winning streak. And then we beat you all there. And then we played Kansas State the next week. I had forgotten about that. We played Kansas one week at Allen Fieldhouse, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Right. Hey, Ricky, they had never heard about Arkansas. They thought we have pigs and cows. And
Kansas, shoot.
You guys put it on. Arkansas was a football school till you got there, Sid.
It was a football school, and we went to Kansas in that beautiful field house. Remember, it was just like nostalgic. It was just like unbelievable, Ricky, the field house. And it was during the Christmas holidays. And it kind of hurt you guys because you didn't have as many fans as you normally would have. I don't think it would have mattered, but,
but anyway. Maybe we just didn't have the right referees, but like we usually did. But I think I remember that game. I think it was either Brewer or
Marvin.
Broke his wrist on a tip dunk or something.
Ron Brewer went down, stole the basketball. He loved to dunk left-handed, and he took it down, went up, dunked the basketball, and broke his wrist, I think, on that particular. He sure did.
I remember that. I'm like, I'm in the locker room going, damn, they're breaking their wrists on us.
That was a great memory. One of the greatest college memories that I've had.
and man, it's so much we want to get into tonight, Sid, and your career, as I mentioned earlier, those great Bucks teams. Do you watch much of the NBA today? And what are your thoughts on the way the game is played today?
Well, I watch it sporadically. I can't watch. I've never been able to watch a full NBA game since I retired. I mean, we had to watch it, right, Paul, doing film sessions. But it's always good to watch it in bits and pieces for me because we get so analytical about everything that's going on. And Paul, I don't know about you, but I have trouble enjoying a game if I just sit there and watch it. It has nothing to do with the quality of play. It just has a lot to do with the quality of play sometimes.
I'll tell you what, Linda gets mad at me sometimes because I still watch it like we used to watch it. Like, why are they not running horns with the twist at the end? And why are they soft showing on the pick and roll? Why is Lopez back so? I'm talking to the TV, and Melinda's like, "What are you doing? Just watch the game."
Hey Rick, it gets really frustrating because coverages change, and you can cover plays a lot of different ways. But it just blows me away about how many times they repeat the same coverage that's not working. And Paul, like you're saying, we both have coached in the NBA. And we know sometimes you tell players to play a certain way, and they don't. And so most of the time I'm thinking, well, I know they told that player to play it this way, but they decided to do something different, or they just forgot. But Ricky, I still watch it, and it's a great game. When you get two good NBA teams playing, it's better to me, a lot better than college basketball, men's or women's NCAA basketball. or WNBA. It's nothing like NBA players making plays, and that's why I like to watch the NBA.
I remember, I've told this story before on our show, Sid, that one thing, like people ask me about coaches. I played for Del Harris, and I played for Don Nelson, and Lenny Wilkins. I got to play for, and they talk about the differences. And one thing I remember really specifically about Nelly, especially when I joined you guys with the Bucks about halfway through, and you guys were a top-notch team. That's part of the reason I wanted to join you guys, is how willing Nelly was to listen to his players. He would say, "Okay, Sid, you're going to guard Mo Cheeks or whatever, Dennis Johnson, and you're going to pick and roll, and this is what we're going to do. But what way would you want to if this doesn't work?" And let you input.
I have that in one of my books, the book that I just wrote, is leadership is all about listening to your players or your staff and making the adjustment based on them giving you input if you trust them. And Nelly trusted us as players, and he was able to listen to how we might want to cover a certain play, because at the end of the day, it's on us. People can talk about coaching all you want, but at the end of the day, it's up to those players to make the plays, to do the coverages, to make the big shot. And he understood that, being a former player. Now, I really respected him. He was a great leader, and so was Del Harris, because they understood you have to get input from your players if you trust them and if they're veterans.
And then that lets the players be more accountable, and they feel more part of it. Okay, I told coach I could guard this. I better guard this.
Absolutely. So that was so unique about our team, and I think you're finding teams getting back to that a little bit more. I see some of the younger coaches are asking for input from the players, sometimes maybe too much, because we still had a line.
Yeah.
Ricky, we still had a line.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, Kyrie said they didn't even need a coach. So when he was in,
you know what I've seen a lot of them do now, Sid, is remember Nelly called this?
Yes.
The big guy would trap the ball whenever he wanted.
Yes. Yes. I remember that. Yeah.
They're running. I see it a lot now. They're double teaming players a lot more earlier, like we used to sometimes, to get the ball out of Dominique's hands or whatever.
Well, I think you have to. And then one thing that I see about the NBA now, they don't tend to take players seriously when they're on a roll, or they let a great player get on a roll. Ultimately, they're going to start scoring buckets. And it's kind of like the Clippers game plan against the Mavericks. I thought it was one of the best game plans I've seen. They started off making sure that Luka and Kyrie Irving never got rhythm early, because every time they would get into where they were making a serious move, they would double. They would hit double the player. They give the ball up, and it took them a while to get their rhythm. And by the time they got their rhythm, Dallas, they were down by 14, 15, 16 points. And I hadn't seen that in a while. It's been a long time I've seen that.
And that's one of the things. I mean, if I'm scouting, playing them, I want to do that, and you saw it. Luka got frustrated more than usual.
Yes. Yeah. You never want a player like that to get in a rhythm or on a roll. If they do, you want to make sure it's late and it's not starting the game, because in the playoffs, how you start the game, well, really during the season, especially the playoffs, is how you start the game is going to set the tone and dictate. I think most of the time it's going to dictate the future of that game. It has so far in these first set of ball games.
Just ask Indiana how they feel about Lillard going off for 35.
Yeah, and that kind of deal can come back and haunt you, because no one else got in the rhythm. I mean, no one else for the Bucks really got in a rhythm. So we'll see game 2 how the other players respond to not being a part. 35 is 35. We'll take it, right? But you still have to always be conscious of getting everybody involved for that next game or that second half, and that's going to be a concern when I look at the Bucks.
And they struggled that second half, guys. Milwaukee did, and
didn't they win by 20, Ricky?
They cut it to like
they start. But Indiana, the entire game, their ball movement, their player movement was so fluid, and that's what kind of stuck out with me. They never lost track of execution. They just didn't make shots, but they executed. And that's going to probably carry over. Well, sometimes they never carry over in the playoffs. You really don't know in the playoffs. So, I was thinking about you can never watch a first game and get a good handle on who's going to win that series.
Yeah, that's what like a lot of we talked about this before, Ricky. Like we used to play when I coached, good shot, bad shot with the team. Watch a half, and sometimes you have to tell the players, not all shots that go in are good, and not all shots that don't go in are bad. You just need to take the good ones.
Man, hey, Ricky, I got to cover this because I'm glad you said that. Because I watch games, Ricky, I do watch games, Mo. You know what bothers me the most?
Bad
it's
shots.
the number of bad shots teams take and the number of bad 3-point shots teams take. That bothers me because I don't think you can win on the highest level consistently with anybody jacking up a 3-point shot just because the analytics say shoot threes. Analytics says make threes. According to what you got to make threes and you have to take good shots. Take good shots.
Hey guys, let me just hold on just a second. I just want to make sure we welcome our viewers in. We got a lot of questions and comments. People want to hear from you, Sid, and we'll get to those. I just want to make sure we welcome everybody in, and thank you for tuning in. Go ahead, Mo. You had a point there.
Oh, I was just going to say analytics. Like I was with the Rockets in the G League for 4 or 5 years, and that was back when that was like NBA teams. Even back then, they were only shooting 23s a game, and our analytics, we're going to shoot 53s a game. Everyone thought we're crazy, but we wanted the right people taking the right threes at the right time. And our progression is in analytics, the number one shot you get is a layup. Number two is get to the paint, get fouled, shoot free throws. Number three in the NBA is a corner three. Then there's a top of the key three. Then there's inside the three, outside the paint two. But it's not take threes. It's get a layup.
Yes, get a layup. And of the 4 games yesterday, Boston shot 49 threes. 60% of their shots were threes, but they shot 48%. They shot 48%. LA Clippers shot 36 threes, 46%. I mean, they shot 50% from the three, and 41% of their shots were threes. The Bucks shot 37 threes, shot 38%, and 43% of their shot were threes. And the only game that the three didn't really have a big plus-minus difference was the best game. And that was New Orleans and Oklahoma City, where they both shot, one shot 39 threes, 28%, 32 threes for Oklahoma City, 31%. And they were 41 and 38% of total shots were threes for both teams. And it was bothering me so much last night when I was watching those games. I had to get up this morning and look at the stats because, hey, Ricky and Mo, you all know this. You only get so many possessions per game. If you're wasting possessions on bad shots, then you're not going to get that back unless you get an offensive rebound or putback. So that's something that I'm just still big on good shots. I don't care if it's a 2 or 3. Take good shots.
And the other thing is have the right people taking the right shots. I mean, if I'm playing like I did with you guys and, from Junior Bridgman to Brian Winters to Jack Sigma to Paul, whoever, if I'm taking shots, especially bad shots, guess who's not getting the shots? You guys.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and I was pissed off about that, Mo, when you would do that.
Dude, I was afraid to shoot until the first couple months.
You were a good 3-point shooter.
That's how I was going to set picks.
Yeah,
but
you were a good 3-point shooter.
You know what, Sid? I can just tell that you guys had a special group because whenever we've had other former Bucks on, we've had Ricky Pierce and we had the great Jack Sigmund, and Ricky was a great player also. And the camaraderie they share with Mo was just like you tonight. You could just tell that had to be a tight-knit group there in Milwaukee.
It was. And why, I don't know. I'm serious. I'm not going to be funny. I think the fact we came from good college programs, we were winners in high school, we were winners in college, and then when we got to the NBA, we were similar type, good coaching staffs. They coached us in college, and we just understood the value of being team players and winning. We understood that, and when you have that, that's when you have a really good close knit group.
Yeah, and I've been on a few shows, a lot of shows, and I talk about that. And you know what? I look back, and I think I played for 6.5 years or something in Milwaukee, and I can't remember maybe one training camp, but besides that, there was no jerks on our team. Everybody got along. No one was, prima donna except, Bob Lanier when he, never practiced, but hell, his knees he couldn't practice, and we didn't care to play the game.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and that's I don't know. That's interesting though, Sid. I wonder if they consciously did that.
They did. They did. And then if we did get one, Ricky, they wouldn't stay long because that environment was too geared towards winning and being professionals. That's the key. We were professionals. We had a job to do. We did our job, and we for a while we liked what we did. But that was, I think, was a big key to our teams.
I remember. I don't know if you remember this, Sid, but we were practicing. We were training camp in the old Marquette gym, and we brought in a player who had played, I think, for Philly. He was an okay player, but he was kind of lazy and laid back. And Nelly got so mad. He's like, if you're going to keep jogging, just jog out that door, jog over to the Hyatt, get your luggage, and jog to the airport and get the hell out of here.
Yeah, but they didn't last long. They didn't last long. Sure did.
My good. Hey, you guys were talking about 3-pointers a couple of minutes ago, and Mo, you talk about. I'm sorry. This is for Sid because Mo and I have discussed this. I mean, I see Steph Curry shoot what I think are bad 3-pointers. Even last night, Dame just comes down and pulls up from 35 feet. And he was hot, but...
Yeah, well, certain players you give grace. Certain players get grace. It's grace. I mean, LeBron shot one from... It was a critical point in the game. I don't know why he shot it. He shot one from just about half court. And typically when you see that happen, players are tired and they don't want to fight the pressure of creating a good shot. But great players get grace. They can take 2 or 3 bad 3-point shots, and that's okay. But you can't have a team full of players thinking that they're Steph Curry. And I've seen that happen in this playoffs where players were just marginal players and they were just jacking up threes like they were Hall of Famers. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And the coach, they just sit there and don't react to it. And I think that's that's a mistake.
And the coaches and the players and the teams that understand that, the players don't get mad. I mean, if we know, okay, Sid's going to take, he's got grace. He could take this and he's going to make them miss them, whatever. And they're not upset us. We're like, okay, that's what we do. That's how we win.
Well, I know one team that doesn't take a lot of bad shots. I didn't say they take any bad shot, and that's the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. They don't take a lot of just bad shots. They take threes. They take good threes. They take a couple of bad here and there, but overall, their shot selection is probably the best that I've seen in the NBA.
Their basketball IQ. I mean, I saw the other day Murray was coming down on the break, and he had a smaller guard, and like old school, instead of pulling or trying to drive, he backed the dude down and made a post move. Yeah.
He sure did. Back him down. He had a spin and underhand shot. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh, a la Ricky Pierce. Deuces.
Yeah, Ricky Pierce. Tough one.
And Sid, what age checks in, calls you one of the greatest defensive guards of all time. And he's not the only person to say that. Some people say you are the best perimeter defender in the history of the NBA, and they called you the Jordan stopper.
No way. Well, you know what? I thought I was an okay perimeter defender, but I think what made me a good defender, I could defend the post. I could defend the post. I could defend the perimeter, but I think Dennis Johnson, Michael Cooper, Joe Dumars, they were better perimeter defenders than I was as far as guards. And because Dennis Rodman goes in a different category. Michael Jordan was a better perimeter defender. So I wouldn't call myself the greatest perimeter defender, but I do think I could defend the perimeter in the post because I was a post player in college somewhat in high school, and I played post defense a lot. And I knew the footwork, and Mo knows this. It's a certain footwork that goes with defending the post. And you have to know the angles, you have to get your foot around. And I was taught all that in high school. So I think all around my defensive game was strong, but perimeter, I always thought I was, just okay. I would keep a guy from catching the ball. That was my perimeter defense. Because if they caught the ball, I was dead. I knew that. You can't stop an offensive player.
But you're solid and smart. See, there's some guys like, you average X amount of steals. Steals isn't good defense. Steals is taking unnecessary chances. And then guess who pays for that in the back of the end? Me, because I get a foul on me. And but being solid like you were takes pressure off of us underneath to have to bail people out. And I mean, now in today's game, there's so much Ole defense. I'm like,
well, they don't teach how to deny the right way. Footwork is so very important, and they take risks. I try not to take risk. If I missed a steal, I knew my footwork was such that I could get back and recover and play defense, and that was important to me. But Ricky, I was not a bad perimeter defender. I'm not saying I was. I am saying I was a good all-around defender as opposed to a great perimeter defender.
Well, I think you're kind of humble too, Sidney.
But ain't nobody a Jordan stopper though.
No,
it takes 2-3 of you.
Yeah,
guys
or
like that.
I'm here. There was the Jordan rules, and you were the Jordan stopper in Milwaukee. But in those early years, you guys really just had superior teams.
We have better teams. Yeah, we would beat Chicago even with Michael when he was younger because we had better teams. But once he got better players and he got his confidence going, it was hard. He was impossible to guard. But when you're on that team where Nelly had this great game plan, I'm blaming on you and Mike Dunleavy. And we played Chicago in Chicago. Michael was, I don't know if he was a rookie or first year, might have been a rookie. So Nelly said, okay, Sidney, we want you to guard Michael. We want you to make sure you push him. We want you to get him going one way, cut him off, and make him spin. And Mike Dunleavy, the other guard, is going to come and double team him, right? And 50 points later, were you on the team where he scored 18 points in the fourth quarter? He kept going down the lane. Dunleavy, every time Dunleavy would come over to try to double Michael would split him, Ricky. And then the big guys, Okevsky, Sigma, whoever was back there, Mike would go up, put his body on them, bump them, and just hit a 3-point play. It was like crazy. I take no responsibility for that 50-point night. No, I did my job.
Yeah, we talked about those Buck teams, and the problem you guys face, as Moa said, man, if you got by Philly, you had Boston. If you got by Boston, you had Philly, and and it was and Atlanta was a tough out back then too.
In New Jersey,
I think even though you're in the Hall of Fame, I think you're a very underrated player, and Dominique's a Hall of Famer. I think he's a very underrated player also.
Yeah, Dominique. I played with Dominique 1 year in Atlanta, and yeah, that's a different level of offensive player. The way he could take the basketball and score it out. It's a lot of great players now, but I'm not so sure once he got the basketball if there was anyone that was more unstoppable because he could actually drive the basketball and elevate and dunk on you, or he could just shoot that crazy little funky jump shot that he had and make it. So he was and he could get offensive rebound. He could offensively, what could he not do? Transition, steal the basketball, go in transition, dunk. He was really a complete offensive package. I watched him in Atlanta. I had the locker right next to him. He would come in, I don't feel good. Not feeling good, and go out and score 30-something points. It's like it was nothing. He's just a phenomenal athlete in a very good basketball.
he was one of the guys, and I've going to play against great players, but there's a handful that could freaking embarrass you. And he was one of those guys. Bird could do it too, but Bird did it with this, behind the back, all this trickery, but Dominique did it with just physical ability. And, I remember sitting on the bench. I think I just got there. I was sitting on the bench and he jumped over, I think, Harvey Catchings and like 3 other guys and tip dunk. I'm like, I think I reacted like, whoa.
You didn't cheer for him, did you? Yeah. And he had a span that was
Harvey's 6'10".
6'10", well, 6'10" with long arms and could jump. So it's not 6'10" and a good, very good athlete. But Dominique, I remember we played them in the playoffs, and I definitely remember he would go baseline. Bob Lanier went up. And this happened more than once. Bob Lanier went up to block it. He hit him with his body, went to not all the way to the other side, but the other front of the rim. He was to the other side, boom, went to the front and dunked the basketball. And by the time the playoffs were over, my wife, Deborah, said, I'm going to get you guys a T-shirt. And the T-shirts are going to say, Dominique Wilkins dunked on me, because he dunked on everybody this playoff series. That's pretty bad when your wife notices someone.
Yeah, that's not good. Yeah.
And she didn't normally talk like that. She was like, I said, yeah, he dunked on everybody, but we won the series.
Hey, speaking of, how was it sweeping Bird in '83? You guys had some battles with the Celtics, with those great Celtics teams. You guys finally got him in '83.
Yeah, but you don't get to enjoy it because you, like Bo said, you sweep them in '83 and there's Philadelphia. And then you have to, so you don't really get a chance to enjoy those type of accomplishments because it's someone waiting for you that's really good that year. And by the time you get beat in that next round, and normally it's the conference finals, which we went to a number of times, by the time you lose in the conference finals, that sweep is like, it's not even part of your mindset any longer. But you just lost to a good team that could have taken you to the finals of the NBA.
Except I think Bird took it personal the next year.
Yeah, he took it a little personal. He sure did.
Pissed him off. Yeah. I'll tell you this. I think I told you this, but I'm going to tell it again because it's a great story. So I ran into Kevin McHale like years later, right? And I said, Kevin, you remember? I can't remember what game it was in the Mecca, and it was a tie ball game, and it was one to get the ball to Bird and get the hell out of the way. And he took a corner 3 in the corner, and after he let it go, he went into the tunnel where their locker room was before. And I'm sitting there going, if this misses, you got to come out and play another overtime. But of course, it swished, right? I'm like, that's unbelievable. He goes, Mo, that's not. By the time we got in the locker room, he had already taken a shower, had his robe on, drinking his second beer, going, where are you guys been?
Well, if you guys been, that's over, huh? Yeah. Well, that's how, and great players today are great players. So I never want to be an older player to say anything negative about the great players of today because they're very, very good. But that was a totally, Larry Bird was, you couldn't even start to put together a player like that in today's game. You really couldn't. That had the instincts, the passing ability. And Bird was a little bit older than us too. And just had that winning DNA. It's just hard to put a player like that together.
And Mo always makes a good point about today's players who, Mo and I both love today's game, and I really love when you guys play. But now it's the thing on youth. And Mo, can you kind of talk to Sidney and our viewers about the philosophies so many teams take now, especially when it comes to the draft? If you're a 22-year-old senior, you're an old guy. You're not even.
Yeah. I remember Sid was there in the draft room in Dallas, and we're looking at all these 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, and I'm looking around like, when they're ready to play, we're not even going to be here anymore. We won't be coaching those dudes. But but to give, some young players today are younger and more skilled, and some of those guys. Like Shea Alexander from OKC, who's and Anthony Anderson. Edwards. These guys are young, but they're stepping up early.
Yeah, they're very skilled. The thing they lack though is that what we had was that college, that savvy that we got out of 2 or 3 years of college, 4 years of college. And where for us, a big game, when I got to the playoffs in the NBA, I had already gone to the Final Four and Elite Eight. So it wasn't like it's the playoffs. Like, I had experience of big games already. And so you kind of come into the NBA and you didn't have to take 3 or 4, you got to take 4 or 5 years to get playoff ready. You were really kind of playoff ready year 1 or 2 in some ways. And to me, that's the biggest difference. The talent and skill levels, certainly they're very skilled, extremely talented. But it's something about that, what you gain when you play in college, and then you have that team mentality when you play for a winning team in college, that can carry over quicker for players years ago than it does now, unless you're LeBron James or Steph Curry. You have exceptions, but overall, it takes a little while before they start getting that rhythm that they need to be dominant.
Steve Schroeder checks in. Andrew Toney loves Super Sid. Boy, that was always a great matchup. My goodness.
Well, he's unguardable. They always ask me the most talented players I've guarded, right? And I always, Michael is a given, right? Nobody. And then I always say Andrew Toney second, and because he was far more equipped than most players offensively. He could do when I say everything, he could do everything. So when you guard him, you can't push him left. You couldn't push him right. You couldn't back off of him. You couldn't play him too close. You couldn't fall asleep on the post because he could post you up. He could drive by. It wasn't anything he could not do as an offensive player. Very hard to guard. And you know who would be number 3? You got George Gervin. You know who would be number 3? Well, maybe 4 in my top 5. Guess who it would be in my top 5?
I want to say Dennis Johnson, but I don't know.
Ricky Pierce. Well, I had to guard Ricky. I had to guard Ricky in practice all the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that was like a second. That was an impossible guard. He couldn't take you like Andrew Toney off the dribble, obviously, and get to the basket quick. But he had a big body. He knew how to use it. He could shoot a jump shot. He could pull up on you and shoot a shot. He was difficult to guard. Also, very, very difficult, impossible to guard.
Yeah, unbelievable mid-range game that is almost absent from the game now, that he could pull up and so strong he couldn't get back to him.
Mid-range, and then he transitioned to be a good 3 shooter, just like that.
Yeah.
Literally, where players had to take some years to become a proficient 3-point shooter, he kind of made that transition quicker than most people because of his shooting ability. Marcus Johnson, great teammate, one of my favorite teammates. And anytime you play against players that know how to play, play with players that know how to play, it's fun. Marcus knew how to play. He was schooled in high school, a great coach, and then John Wooden, UCLA. It was seamless when you play with great players. And he didn't play outside of his skill set, which was pretty vast, right? But he didn't take many bad shots. I don't remember Marcus taking a lot of bad shots. He was a phenomenal leaper. He could post up, good transition player. It wasn't anything he could not do offensively. He was just a lot of fun to play with.
Man, I love these questions coming in because I was a big fan of the Bucks team. That I never knew at that time, being a young sports writer, that I would meet Mo and become great friends with Mo. But I followed you guys really closely because I just love the way you played. Your team played. Nobody took bad shots on those Bucks team. And Woodage is talking about pressing.
One guy took bad shot.
Who?
TC.
Oh, TC. but he had high percentage bad shots. That's another guy that's
I
Hall of Fame.
2 of the most underrated players that I know of are Marcus and TC, Terry
Easy.
Cummings. Because
Easily.
and people say why? Because they could score and defend and rebound and physical. I'm like, yeah, but they hardly ever made the All-Star game because there's Larry Bird and Dominique Wilkins. So where
Right.
you go?
It was tough. And Dr. J.
Yeah, Dr. J.
But back to Marcus and who he said, Terry Cummings. When I sign autographs at the Bucks games now, people have number 34 on, for Giannis. And then I always say, oh, are you Terry Cummings? Terry Cummings wore this 34 before because he was a beast. But playing with Paul Pressey, Paul just made everybody better. He was totally unselfish. He was totally unselfish, and he was 6'7", long arms, and he could pass the ball. That's why I loved him. We used to run a little play. Where I would set up on the post and I would curl around. It could be any 5 guy. Yep. And I would curl around, and he was big enough to throw a little hook pass to me in the paint. A lot of players couldn't make that play, but he was just a very good defender, tenacious player, could make plays, and he didn't take anything away from his teammates. He was always adding on to making you better and not trying to take away from you.
That play was 5C, by the way.
5C. I love it.
How would Paul's game transition today?
Well, let me just say this. Remember, when we played, we practiced and we worked out a certain way based on how the game was played. And that's what a lot of people don't really take into account. If we were playing today, we wouldn't even have practiced the same way. We would have taken more 3-point shots. We would have made all the adjustment. We would have handled the ball more, because they definitely can handle the ball nowadays. Their handles are really tight. But when we came along, if you were a 2 guard or a 3 or 4, you're not a 1, you didn't have the basketball much. And so it's a certain way we were taught to play, and that's how we practice. And that's why when people say, well, certain players probably couldn't play in today's game, well, yes, they could have, because
Mo, I think we lost Sid for a second there.
Yeah, hopefully he'll come back.
Hey, while we're trying to get Sidney back, Chris asked about Bernard King, playing against those Bernard King and Artis Gilmore. I know you and Artis had a lot of battles back in the day. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to ask Sidney. He had to guard Bernard King some, but Bernard was more of a forward. But talk about a pure scorer who could score from outside and inside. And as far as Chris Artis was. I played against some strong guys. Daryl Dawkins, didn't really need to know how to use his strength that well. But Artis Gilmore is the strongest guy I ever played against. I mean, he could move you he would move you when you look at the ref, and he's like, "What are you talking about?" Because it didn't even look like he was trying, And Artis is also an underrated player that at 7'1" or 7'2", whatever, with that afro, but could jump out of the gym and strong and block shots and finish around the basket. He was a player that's been overlooked as far as centers are, in the game.
And friend of the show.
Oh, yeah.
He
thinks I own an Italian restaurant, I think, here in Vegas.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm hoping we get Sidney back. Hey, while we're waiting for Sidney to come back, Paul, the first weekend of the playoffs, what has stood out to you?
Hold on, let me text it to see if we can get on.
Okay. And tell him I'm going to send him another link just in case.
Because I really want to talk about his book for sure. But I think every home team won in the first games of all the playoffs, and that's unusual. Usually there's a visiting team that wins here or there, and I think New Orleans had a great chance at beating OKC at home and stealing that first game, but that never happened. So, I've told you this before, Ricky, that I think in 7-game series, the odd number games are the most important: 1, 3, 5, and of course 7. And I think every series so far has played out with the home team. I think that could change here in the next couple days. But OKC, even though they have another number 1 rank, I think they're a little susceptible. Denver is, I just keep looking at their roster, and they're not very deep, and they only play 6 guys or 7 maybe, and the backups aren't that great. But man, they just keep getting the job done, and I think part of it is the way, Sidney said, they don't take bad shots and they don't force anything.
Is that why? Because I think they've beaten the Lakers like 7, 8, 9 straight times, but they're always pretty close games. But the Lakers are never able to pull one out. Is that because of the efficiency of Denver?
Yes, and I think it's half-court efficiency. I think Denver is one of the best half-court teams. Execution, the Murray Joker pick and roll. They also have guys going back door. And in my opinion, I think the Lakers rely too much on either AD or LeBron. They're not running any action per se, and they're putting all the pressure on the player to make a big play rather than give them some action, whatever that, staggered double, whatever that might be, to get them the ball on the move, and then make something happen. And I think Denver has that half-court execution all over the Lakers. They're just better at it.
Hey, this is a great question here, Mo. Is the Joker a 7-foot Larry Bird?
That's a good question, because when Sidney was talking about that, I was thinking about that. Is the closest thing to a Larry Bird, is it the Joker? It could be. Very good, both good passers, both basketball IQ. Larry's a better shooter, but the Joker can make threes, but he's not going to, Larry's a better shooter. Joker's, maybe a little better defender. Yeah, better defender than Larry. Larry's probably a little better passer. But that's a good question, and only time will tell on that one.
Yeah.
Did you send that to Sid, Ricky? He's trying to get back.
Yeah, I sent him another link. And just to our viewers out there, we've been having this fantastic conversation with Sidney Moncrief, 5-time NBA All-Star, 2-time NBA Defensive Player of the Year. He won the first 2 NBA Defensive Player of the Year awards, Mo. And
yeah, he downplayed that, but no one wanted to.
I know. Yeah.
No one wanted Sid to have their assignment. Sid was on you. Even the greats were like, "Oh, it's going to be a long night," because he was so relentless and so smart. About everything, angles and all that stuff. So, just a great all-around player. I mean, yeah, I think if I'm not wrong, it's his computer. So maybe we'll have to have him on another time.
Hey, well, please let him know, because we definitely want to talk about his book, and we're going to mention it tonight before we get out of here. And you can tell, but Mo, what I love is just the fellowship that you guys have, the friendship, all those battles, man. I would assume just kind of connects you. Oh, Sid's back. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
See, Sid, unlike us, Sid can fix stuff. He knows how to do that stuff.
You just said he was relentless, Mo.
I told you.
You just said he was relentless. And Sid, we do want to talk about your book. And you are not only a great Hall of Fame basketball player, but an accomplished author. Talk to us about the book, Get Off the Bench, Get in the Game, a guideline to get off the sidelines in the workplace. Oh, we lost him again.
Well, maybe he'll try in a minute, but I know Sidney has been doing a lot in community, a lot with businesses, and a lot with schools about leadership and accountability and things like that that I think are lacking in a lot of places, and how important it is on the team, you know. And I think he's done
Yeah.
such work in that area. If we can't get him back tonight, we definitely need to have him on again to talk about that. Oh, here he comes again, I think. Hey.
I think we got him.
Yes.
Hey,
I'm on my telephone.
hey Sid, we were talking about your book, Get Off the Bench, Get in the Game. A guideline to get off the sidelines and in the workplace, which is available. Make sure you let us know where you can pick that book up.
Well, you can go to SidneyMoncrief.com, and that's where you can order the book. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun writing it because it was I had to tap back into mode when I was in junior high school,
Yeah.
and even before that. Kind of tough.
Well,
But it has some great illustrations about how we can be on the bench for a number of reasons, and then how we can somehow get off the bench and start to perform. And there are reasons people are on the bench, and reasons why people excel, and the bench is a very important part of a team, right? And I just talked about when I was in junior high school, pretty much on the bench, and things I did unconsciously at that time to become a better player and a better teammate.
Yeah, and I think like
You know,
today, I'm sorry, I'm the old man on the get off my lawn, but in today's world, it seems like, you know, with transfer portal and all this moving around and free, you know, everybody, instead of thinking about what they can do to get off the bench, they blame someone for putting them on the bench. I think that's a big difference.
Yeah, I have a chapter in there about who's to blame for you being on the bench. And I used an illustration about when I was in junior high school, I did something I should not have done in the locker room that put me on the bench. Because when you're there, it's for a reason. Sometimes it's something you've done. Sometimes they need you to substitute for someone else, and you think you're valuable coming off the bench. And then sometimes you're just really close to being off the team because of something you've done, or because of what you did not do that the coach asked you to do. There's a lot of reasons. And I had so much fun with this book.
you know, Mo talks about, you know, he's coached and scouted in the NBA, of course, played in the NBA. That it's not just talent that keeps you in the NBA, because there are a lot of talented guys that only get a cup of coffee, and so much of the mental aspect is overlooked. And it seems like, especially in today's game.
Yes. It's more than talent. I think you have to have a certain mental mindset about winning, being a pro, the way you prepare, the way you support your teammates, the way you execute a game plan. I've seen talented players, not great talented players, but just talented players that should have been on NBA roster, and they were not because they couldn't remember plays, or they were selfish, or they were undisciplined about practice, or they didn't get along with the teammates. It's a lot of reasons. And it's the same thing in the workplace. Same dynamics happen in the workplace.
Yeah, I remember a lot of players coming through in Milwaukee when I was there, you know, trying to keep my spot and everything, going, man, these guys are good. But like you said, they didn't understand the dynamics of a team and how to make it on a team. You know, and I've done things with my teams in the G League and stuff about, you know, knowing your role, you know. And most guys now, when we did this in Cleveland, back when I was in Cleveland, we had World Be Free on the team, and he went up to the board and said, this is the only role I know: dinner roll and payroll. That's what the roles I know. but you know, players, when you're struggling, they'll go, well, coach, why you'll ask them, why are we struggling? Well, nobody knows their roles. And then I'll ask people their roles, and they know them, they don't accept them. You know,
Right.
they know them. You know, everybody knows them.
Yeah.
You know,
And the portal has made, I'm not saying it's anything wrong, but it has made it more difficult, certainly for high school and college coaches, because you have to recruit players you don't have and players you have constantly. And now it's all about your numbers, because you're trying to get some of that NIL money.
Yeah.
And so it becomes more difficult for them to understand you are a member of a team, and your responsibility is to make that team better, help them win the game, not just you score points.
oh, this is a great question. Sidney, do you have any Pistol Pete stories?
I don't, because Pistol was always older than me, and I grew up like Mo, probably just wanting to be and handle the ball and spin the ball on your finger like Pistol Pete. But by the time I got to the NBA, he was on his way out of the NBA. So I didn't get a chance to. I got a chance to play against him, but not when he was at his peak.
Yeah, yeah.
But I read 2 books about him because I was very intrigued by how he became so skilled and how his dad drove him to be a great player and all the things he had to do. So I did read about him. It had an impact on me.
Yeah, I'll
Definitely.
tell you, it was our rookie year, Sid, because I was with the Rockets. Wasn't playing much because I was behind Moses. And I remember playing the Boston Celtics in the playoffs, and Pistol was on that team. That was his last year in the league. And I remember sitting on the bench, and here comes this guy with the socks and skinny and can't hardly walk. I'm like, why is he going in the game? And then he goes in the game, he's like, boom, zing, zong, he's passing all these dudes. I'm like, damn.
Yeah, he was special. He was special. So I did play against him. Let me say that. But it was the same time, Mo. He was at the Celtics, and he was on his way out.
Yeah, I think Tiny finished up his career with the Celtics too, spending a little time. Hey, when we lost you, somebody asked about you dealing with Bernard King.
Well, I never had to guard Bernard very much. Now I do on my Hall of Fame tape, my highlight tape. He's trying to post me up, and I steal the ball. But I didn't steal it from him. I stole it from the person passing the ball with my great post defense. Because he's another player. If they catch the ball, it's not in defense. Nothing you can do. And so my defense was all about keeping that player from catching that ball, especially on their sweet spot. And if I could do that, I relied a lot on my teammates after that. But Bernard King was a beast, and he was scoring 50 without 3-point shots. Think about it. So a lot of the 50 points that we saw, Mo, they did not shoot a lot of threes. It was just grinding, and scoring baskets.
And physical, getting beat up.
Steve just reminded me that Tiny ended his career in Milwaukee. Were you guys there when Tiny was?
Yes, I love Tiny Archibald. Yeah. I knew when I played my first All-Star game, and Tiny was on my team. And we had some good point guards at Milwaukee, but we didn't have a Tiny Archibald. And I remember making a cut to the basket, and I kind of had given up on the cut. And there's the ball he's in. But that's when I knew the different levels of point guard. They could see things you couldn't see things before they happen. And when he hit me that pass, and I missed it because I didn't. That's when I said, man, that's a different level of point guard right there. Yeah, he was a really good player. Yeah.
That's the same with Magic Johnson. He had that ability, like to pre-see stuff or something. He knew where everybody was at all the time.
Yeah. With those guys, if you played against them more, you would know. Never give up on cut, right? Just keep your eyes. Just know the ball's coming. But I wasn't used to that, and that was the first time. And that happened to me 2 or 3 times in that All-Star game, which was kind of embarrassing.
Did he say anything to you?
It's a shame you guys never got a chance to match up with the Lakers in the finals because you guys gave them problems.
Yeah, we played the Lakers well because we had Bob Lanier. Bob had a big body, but Bob could play. Bob was an extremely smart player. And then we just had Magic. We could guard Magic. When Magic wanted us to guard him. Magic, what I found out, when Magic didn't want you to guard him, he could turn into a scorer that could not be stopped. As Boston found out in the conference, the NBA finals, right? Where he scored what, 40? Yeah. But in general, he played with his back to the basket. He was a facilitator, and we just seemed to match up well against the Lakers for some reason. We just matched up well.
Yeah, we finally got by Philly one year, and we ran into Boston, and I think it was game 6 or 7 or whatever. And if we got by them, we were going to face the Lakers, and I knew that we had a really good chance at a ring if we could get to the finals. But I think Bird went crazy or something in that last game.
Yeah, they had. I always tell people, they said, "Don't you think you guys were right there?" I said, "Well, I don't think I ever played a game, and I'm serious right now, that I didn't think we could win. I don't care if it was Boston, Philadelphia in the playoffs. I never went to a game saying, 'Damn, we're going to lose this game.' I just felt we could win." But now, fast forward 40-something years. How many Hall of Famers did Boston have?
Phew.
5,
All
6,
front line, number
6,
one.
7.
5 or 6. At one point, they had 7 if you count Bill Walton and
Yeah.
Pete Maravich.
Yeah.
That's 7. Philly had how many? 5.
Dang.
So we just don't realize when we were playing ball, we didn't realize all that, did we?
Yeah, I didn't think about that. I'm
We
like,
just
could
we
beat
just
them.
out there balling, trying to win the game. You know? but when the dust settles, and normally that could be 10 years later, and then you said, "Man, God, boom, boom, boom," just not quite good enough.
Yeah. Hey, we just got a couple more minutes here. I just want to remind people about the book again that Sidney has. It's called Get Off the Bench, Get in the Game, a guideline to get off the sidelines in the workplace. Sidney, I'm gonna get me a copy of that, even though I'm retired, man. I think I'm gonna get your autobiography. What's your other book?
Well, this is book number 12.
Dang,
So,
man, we got to get
yeah.
you back just to go over your books.
Yeah, we gotta go over all the books.
The autobiography, it's rated X, so I can't do that one.
Uh-oh. Am I in there?
Yeah, to tell the real story, it wouldn't be good.
We got one more before we get out of here. Terry Teagle and Alton Lister were your teammates, Paul and Sidney, trying to remember a lot. Terry Teagle.
Terry Teagle played for Baylor. He's a great player at Baylor University. And he played in the NBA for a short period of time, but he was never teammates with mine. Yeah, right.
Oh, listen,
He was
big
competitive.
man, though. He was. Big man.
Great guy.
Hey, we got to get out of here, guys. Sidney, it is always an honor and a pleasure talking with you, sir. One of the best to ever do it. You were the guy that invented the Defensive Player of the Year. You won the first 2 they ever had, man.
Yeah, they just didn't know who to give it to. They were not sure. 2 years, they didn't know what the award was all about. But
then they started to mistakenly give it to Michael Jordan. What the hell?
Yeah. But I'm very, very humble to, and I always say this, that defense is a function of your team. It's not a function of the individual. Our defense was so fine-tuned in Milwaukee, and people don't identify Nelly in defense, but believe me, back in those days, Nelly, John Killalay, and that group, they had a defensive strategy and a model that was second to none. And we executed that. And they made me look like I was a great defender. I was a very good defender, but I relied a lot on Mo and all the other teammates to help support us.
Well, man, we are up against the clock. Sidney, come back and visit with us, brother.
Thank you, guys. I'm sorry for my phone. My big
No worries, man.
computer went out.
Thanks
Yeah.
again, man. Love you, brother.
All right. Love you, Mo.
All right.
Later.
Take care,
All right.
Sid. Love you, Mo. See you next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Peace, everybody.